It's time to review Tomb Raider 2013 for the Xbox 360. Tomb Raider. Never has there been such a series that's been looked on with such great stonking nostalgia goggles that people generally tend to forget about the stiff, fairly unresponsive controls, dreadful combat, and boring puzzles in favor of how revolutionary its its 3D graphics and gameplay were for their time. Still, it was only a matter of time before everyone got past the sorry, atmospheric tombs and realized that maybe the series was a bit poo. Ever since then, the series for most people has only gone on a sort of downward spiral with no sign of getting better. Even with a universal reboot to clear out some of the continuity load, as well as the change of developers from Core Design to Crystal Dynamics of Soul Reaver and Gex the Gecko fame, not to mention that the games developed by them were actually quite good, people were still criticizing them for playing it safe and not doing anything new. So, Dynamics took to hiding in their little programming hole for 4.5 years as they decided to reboot the whole universe. Again, and take things in a brand new direction, somewhat inspired by the likes of Uncharted. And in early 2013, the result was Tomb Raider, or as I'm going to call it, Tomb Raider 2013, because seriously, it's just a very lazy name otherwise. A game that received brilliant critical acclaim, and despite Square Enix's claims of doomed forever, actually sold quite well, even to the point of the game getting ported onto the latest next-gen consoles like the X1 and the PS4. To try and tie into this re-release, and obviously not to disguise the fact that I was supposed to do this months ago before getting distracted by all the wonders contained within my 3DS in the world of fanfiction, how's about we take a look at the original version and see if it really did deserve to be released on more consoles. Get your Tomb Raider gear together, fellow viewers, because we're about to find out! Reborn as an eager archaeologist just off of college, Lara Croft is part of a crew that sets out to find the long-lost kingdom of Yamatai. On her advice, they travel to the Dragon's Triangle in the east coast of Japan, and before you can say dramatic plot twist, they become shipwrecked in a dreadful storm that soon splits them apart. Fortunately, Lara survives thanks to her special gift of main character immunity and starts to explore the mysterious island they've been abandoned on as she tries to reunite with the rest of her crew and find a way to get out of there. However, she realizes over time that it may not be so simple thanks to a millennia-old conspiracy rearing its head, bringing with it the wrath of the gods, the relentless attacks from a group of gun-wielding men, and just possibly the key to finding Yamatai once and for all. Tomb Raider 2013 is a cross between a 3D action platformer with elements of both Metroidvania, where you can use newly acquired abilities to unlock previously blocked off areas in a fully explorable world, and survival horror, where you'll have to work your way through unnerving situations past enemies that can kill you very quickly. You move with the left thumbstick, move around the camera to get a better view of the world with the right thumbstick, jump with A, roll or dodge away from attacks with the B button, interact with the world through the context-sensitive X button, and can pull off finishers with your melee weapon, usually a climbing axe of some sort with Y. In addition to this, you can use your survival instinct to locate items of importance, or where you're supposed to go in the style of games like the Batman Arkham series by holding the left bumper, switch whatever weapon you're using from bows to pistols and beyond by pressing the corresponding direction on the D-pad, aim your weapon with the left trigger before firing with the right trigger, and can use an alternate style of fire with RB, though that will only become available later on. Throughout the game, your goal is to explore the unusual island and whatever mysterious constructs, towns, buildings, facilities, and of course good old tombs to find out what's going on. To help you with this, you'll need to find certain items that'll help you access certain areas that are either important to completing the story or simply hide certain secrets. These items, ranging from new weapons to climbing gear and so forth, can be found during your travels and can be upgraded by collecting salvage normally left behind by dead enemies or scrap boxes lying around. Once you've collected enough salvage, you can go to one of the many fireplaces scattered around the island to enhance them or give them new abilities to make surviving this hellish place much easier. At the fireplace, you can also fast travel between them in order to cut down on tedious backtracking, and with experience acquired from killing enemies, finding secret items such as relics, special documents discussing the backstory behind the mysterious island and so forth, you can earn new skills that improve your overall abilities in both combat and exploration, make it easier to find secret items, and so on. Alright, when it comes to the problems that TR 2013 has, there's a low number of issues I had with the game, but they happen to be noticeable problems ranging from minor presentation problems to annoying gameplay aspects to mood-ruining plot segregation. The presentation problems. The soundtrack is actually very forgettable and bland, I thought. the music's not bad, don't get me wrong, but given how Tomb Raider games usually have very atmospheric, if not memorable songs that pull you even further into the game and can actually enhance the overall experience with certain titles like Legend and Anniversary, it's actually an enormous shame that the OSC is only just average. Then there's the gameplay. While it's not riddled to the brim with errors, there are two flaws that are particularly annoying. Firstly is with the obligatory QuickTime events. Now, I'm probably one of the very few still alive that actively likes QuickTime events as an idea that can add a cinematic element to a game without having to waste important time with ridiculous amounts of programming for something that won't be used quite often, but good lord are the ones in this game irritating. It's not the concept that bothers me so much as it is the execution. Simply put, they're just way too sudden to react to them properly, resulting in countless attempts of trial and error. Since these usually tend to happen during the more action-paced tense sections, but not often enough that you get used to them, the atmosphere can be killed almost as much as the hilariously gruesome death scenes do in our poor protagonist. And this goes double for the River Rapids section, where you have to dodge a series of fatal obstacles in a minigame filled with some of the worst controls in recent memory, and if not, you get to see Lara's neck impaled by a tree branch to the point where it actually becomes grimly amusing. Also, while this isn't a flaw with the gameplay, I just found TR 2013 to lack a certain spark. Okay, let me explain. With the best games in the world, or at least your favorite games, there's always something about the game, be it in its atmosphere, gameplay, story, etc., that keeps you, the player, coming back to the game time and time again, which is usually a very good sign about the game's quality. And I'm the kind of person that has a lot of cases like this, like the Ace Attorney series, Crash Twinsanity, Kingdom Hearts 2, several Sonic games, and more recently Sleeping Dogs. But with Tomb Raider 2013, that special something wasn't there. I mean, I played through the entire game, earned all the upgrades, and collected every single collectible I could find over the course of 20 hours, so it's not like I'm only going to play through a very small portion of the game before judging it. But after that, I never picked up the game again. And I don't plan on doing so at any point in the near future. And I think I know just where the game might have fallen down hard enough for that to happen. The story, and how it interacts with the gameplay. Now, before I get on to my problems with the story, I will admit that it is a very well done one. While it's a bit cliched, the characters are distinctive and well written, the acting's really solid, there's a real mystery to what's going on behind the island, and Lara's character arc is actually rather good with some extraordinarily poignant and memorable scenes that occur over the course of the game. Now, with that said, the problems crop up when the plot and the gameplay integrate. For those of you not in the know, the idea behind the story, and ultimately the game itself, was to show Lara's transformation from a soft, naive, weak-willed innocent who can barely bring herself to kill a deer into a hardened, brave, strong warrior easily capable of taking down legions of enemies without so much as batting an eye. And while the story does its best to show this, it makes no sense when compared to the gameplay, and even the cutscenes can be a bit haphazard about this. It really does feel like the character development is just all over the place. 20 to 25% of the time, Lara's essentially the video gaming equivalent to Shinji Ikari, and then the rest of the time she becomes what can only be described as Rambo Batman Jesus, expertly killing enemies with precision that many soldiers could only hope to have, taking World War II era weapons and turning them into fucking AK-47s with a few pieces of scrap, and being a complete and total badass capable of pinning down Hulk Hogan with both arms tied behind her back. If the game wants to do that, fine, fair enough, that's the writer and subsequently the developer's decision. But at the very least, make the progression more gradual so it doesn't come off like the writer had a completely different plan from the developers and the extremely haphazard character development was the result. Look, I understand it was only the writer's job to simply connect the dots, but I still think there should have been better communication between the two parties to reduce how irritatingly random the development was. That way, we wouldn't end up with a scene where, after killing another human being for the first time, Lara collapses to her knees and screams in misery, right before she gets up and starts killing more of them endlessly, one by one, like some kind of expert psychopath. I know it shouldn't bother me so much. I mean, lots of games have a segregation between the story and their actual gameplay all the time. It's a very common thing. But seeing how much of a big deal was made about how gratifying it would be to see just a powerful transformation, and then being the complete opposite of that is just really bloody annoying and without a doubt the biggest problem with the entire game. Now, with all that in mind, it's actually a very impressive achievement that Tomb Raider 2013 still managed to be very good in spite of all these problems, which would have damn near crippled the lesser game. For starters, it's very well made in the technical aspects. Despite the rather dull color palette, the graphics are really bloody good, with well-designed character models that animate and express themselves nicely, unbelievably enormous and beautiful levels, and rarely a glitch or frame rate problems to be found in sight, even despite the huge set pieces that occur over the course of the game. Speaking of huge levels, they're probably one of the best parts of the entire experience. Each level you come across is absolutely stuffed with secret items to collect, hidden areas to explore, and bonus challenges to complete. They're designed to provide a truly spectacular sense of scale, and with a lot of variations so that you can clearly tell the levels apart. And they're just so much bloody fun to explore. Honestly, it's times like this where I wonder why people gave up on 3D platformers quite some time ago. Clearly, there's still something in the genre that can be done if this is anything to go by. And if you weren't a big fan of how short games like Legend or Underworld were in comparison to the older games, don't worry, this one's got you covered there too. Not even counting the multiplayer mode, the main game takes about 15 to 20 hours to complete. And that's not even counting the huge amount of aforementioned secrets that could take literally days to find. Believe me, this game was so huge that the only way I could wind down after beating it was to play something incredibly short so I didn't get too wiped out from it all. Finally, there's the gameplay, which is as good as any Tomb Raider game has ever been. The controls are smooth and intuitive, it's very satisfying to explore the enormous world on offer to see what you can find, the combat's a lot of fun and really quite action-packed, and outside of the far too quick QTEs, I'd argue it's relatively flawless. I couldn't find a single other thing about it that irked me in some way. It is genuinely that good. In the end, Tomb Raider 2013 is a great game with very good gameplay, amazing graphics despite a dull palette, lots of content in both what you can find, explore, and the time it'll take to complete it, and a solid story. However, it's brought down by quantum events that are way too sudden to react to them properly and encouraging a lot of trial and error, lacking a certain spark that'll bring me back to the game in the future, and really inconsistent, unsatisfying character development that clashes frequently with the gameplay and brings down the intention of the overall project. All the same, if you're a fan of 3D platformers, Metroidvania-style games with a twist, the Tomb Raider series, or all of the above, I really suggest you check out Tomb Raider 2013 and see what you think. Hopefully, it'll be worth the wait. In any case, I give this game a rating of very good. A great game that's unfortunately held back by a few irritating flaws. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to see if I can finally get adjusted to the wretched controls of the old core design games. And speaking from experience, it probably isn't going to turn out all that well. I'm Father Dugan 8000, and I hope you enjoyed watching my review for Tomb Raider 2013. Until we meet again, have a great day, y'all!